Greetings everyone, and welcome back to another in-depth phone review. In today's one I'm going to be taking a look at another phone released from OnePlus, which is the 10T. The 10T was released in August this year, and is the more budget-friendly option to the more expensive OnePlus 10 Pro. There are some things from the 10 Pro that have been removed from the 10T, such as water resistance, the display has been cut back, cameras have also been drastically cut back, but in place of those is the incredible 150 watt fast charging, as well as the new and improved Snapdragon 8 Plus Gen 1 processor. So what I'm here to do today is test this phone out and see if it's worth the asking price of almost $1,000 Australian dollars. Before I do that, I have to give a massive thank you to OnePlus as always for sending me out another phone to review on this channel. I always really do appreciate it. While I turned down the 10 Pro review, I thought the 10T was a better option to go with, so let's see how this goes. If you are interested in this item, there is a link down in the description below. It is not an affiliate link, so I will not earn anything if you go there and purchase it. It's just down there for your convenience. I'm also not being paid by OnePlus for this review. They've just sent this out to me to give my honest review on, and that's what I'm here to do. Currently at the moment, the OnePlus 10T standard package, which is the 8GB RAM plus 128GB storage version, sits at around $930 Australian, which I'll display a currency conversion chart on screen for this, so you get a rough idea of how much this costs around the world. However, there's a few configurations for the 10T which unfortunately are out of stock at the moment, except one which is the 16GB RAM plus 256GB storage version, which is $1,116 Australian, and I'll also display a currency conversion chart on screen for that as well, so you get a rough idea of how much that costs around the world as well. I did ask for the 12GB and 256GB option, but they were out of stock, so I've went with the standard one, which I think majority of people would go for anyways. You can also bundle some earphones or a watch with your purchase if you wanted to, completely up to you. And just to also clear, there is no differences between versions with 12GB RAM and higher, it's just RAM and storage that are bumped up and that's it. Also, one thing to note with the 10T, if you don't want to spend the money to get the 10 Pro, you can always opt to get the OnePlus 9 Pro, which I've already done a ridiculously long video on. If you want to check that video out, I'll have a card pop out at the top right corner. But the phone is about $960 Australian, so $30 more than the 10T. You still get 5G, you get a better display, a more outdated processor, slower charging, but the camera system's also way better on that as well. But network compatibility with the 9 Pro versus the 10T is a little bit lacking. But for the most part, for a $30 difference, with a solid build quality, the 9 Pro is always a great option to still go with. Now I'd like to go over the full list of specifications of the OnePlus 10T. This is going to be a bit of a long one, but just to remind everyone before I continue on that there are timestamps in the description as well as the pinned comment. They should also appear within the YouTube interface for the video as well, so you can just skip along past this part if you need to. So the model is the OnePlus 10T 5G in the standard package. The back and front of the phone are both Gorilla Glass 5 and the frame is plastic, which I know folks may have seen Jerry Rig Everything's video on the 10T snapping in half, but for the most part this won't happen in everyday scenarios, but I know people will mention this down in the comments. There's no IP rating with this device unfortunately, so be careful around water with this one. The dimensions of the device are shown on screen and the weight of this is 204 grams. The system on chip is the latest Qualcomm Snapdragon 8 Plus Gen 1, which is based on a 4nm manufacturing process. The RAM configuration is either at 8GB standard, 12GB or 16GB as an optional version as briefed over earlier. Default storage is 128GB, or once again you can go to 256GB. Unfortunately there is no microSD card slot on this device, which has been carried over from previous iterations of the OnePlus flagship lineup, as well as commonplace on most flagship devices nowadays, save for a few exceptions. The display is a 6.7-inch 20x9 1080x2412 120Hz Fluid AMOLED display with 1 billion colors and HDR10+. A considerable downgrade from the 10 Pro's 1440x3216 LTPO to 120Hz AMOLED display. In the camera department, we have a triple camera setup on the back that ditches the Hasselblad branding that was on the 9 Pro and the 10 Pro. It seemed like a gimmick anyway, so I'm happy that it's gone, but with the rear camera setup, we aren't running top tier stuff. We have a 50 megapixel main sensor with optical image stabilization, then we have an 8 megapixel ultra wide camera with a 120-degree field of view, and finally we have a 2 megapixel macro sensor alongside a dual LED flash, and the main camera can film up to 4K 60fps. And I'll just quickly say, with a phone almost at $1,000 and having a macro camera on the back is a severe disappointment. Even a basic telephoto camera in place of this would have been much better, but it is what it is at the end of the day. The front camera is a 16 megapixel one and it can film at 1080p at 30fps. The battery is a 4800 mAh dual battery design, which means that this absolute beast of a charger that is bundled with this can charge at a max of 150 watts, and this is for 240 volt sockets. For 110 volts it goes down to 125 watts. This is a big upgrade from the 10 Pro. However, with that we don't get any wireless charging capabilities or reverse charging support. The OS is Oxygen OS, which is built on Android 12. Like previous OnePlus devices I've reviewed on this channel already, this is basically using stock Android, but OnePlus has added a few things here and there to make it their own, which I'll show later on during the review. In connectivity options, we have dual band Wi-Fi, Bluetooth 5.2, GPS, NFC, we don't have an FM radio, not a deal breaker. USB is Type-C, that runs at USB 2.0 speeds, and there is also an under-screen optical fingerprint sensor. speaker. Dual loudspeakers are built into the OnePlus 10T, which I'll be testing BFG Division on, and they are also Dolby Atmos certified. Before I jump to the networks, I will say that the 10T lacks one important feature that I wish would be on more phones, and that is the alert slider. Even the Nord 2 had the alert slider, and it is a very handy feature to have on Android devices. This unfortunately ditches it. Now we come down to the networks. This should support most major networks around the world, so I'll display the band list on screen. Please make sure you check with your network providers to make sure your country supports these bands. With a phone at this price, you want to make sure you can actually pick up reception wherever you live. I did do a quick check, and it should work in the US. It definitely does work here in Australia with the 3 major telcos that I've tested this with, so all good in that department. And also, since this has no micro SD card slot, the SIM tray has an option to have 2 nano SIM cards in dual SIM configuration, which one will be at 5G and the other at 4G. And finally, in the box, the charger that comes with my device is a European one, but OnePlus will send the correct charger according to your country. They don't have an Australian plug, which is why I've had to use my own travel adapter. So we get the phone itself in the box, 160 watt fast charger, Type-C cable, quick start guide, welcome letter, safety information and warranty card, a pre-applied screen protector, SIM tray ejector. Unfortunately, no case included with this, but it would have been nice to see. But anyways, that is all of the specifications of the OnePlus 10T. Let's quickly breeze over some of the advertising for the phone, and then we can finally move on to unboxing the phone. So I'll just quickly show the specifications list from the AliExpress listing that this is available on, so feel free to pause the video if you need to have a quick look at the specifications once again. A couple of frequently asked questions: if the price includes custom duty. The phone definitely does have Google Play Store and supports multi-languages, and you do get 1 year of official warranty from OnePlus. So here it is, the OnePlus 10T 5G Evolve Beyond Speed is the tagline for this. While I comment on the camera bumps later on in the video, I'll comment on it now. The camera bump does look like a stove. I can't help but look at it and think it's a stove. If you get the Snapdragon processor hot enough, you could possibly cook something on the camera glass if you wanted to. Another piece of advertising just saying the processor, the 150 watt fast charging, smart link, the 50 megapixel triple camera setup, which is more of a dual camera setup to be fairly honest, since the 2 megapixel macro camera is pretty much worthless, and the 120Hz smart display. It has a futuristic design, which blends over 130 meticulous manufacturing processes and luxurious craftsmanship. The OnePlus 10T is a silhouette of speed. And while I'm filming this after I've already unboxed it, I can tell you it does feel quite nice. The back has a really strange texture to it. It's glass, but it also has like a sandstone finish to it like the original OnePlus One did. Chilled to perfection, we have a vapor cooling system within the OnePlus 10T. It may be a little bit difficult for me to actually show this in my teardown, but I'll do my best because I don't really want to take the screen off this, so I'll just be able to show you whatever I can from just tearing it down normally. And I figured I'd do the teardown as well because I wanted to give a more comprehensive look into the inner workings of the 10T. The OnePlus 10T also comes with something called a Hyperboost gaming engine, which will supposedly optimize my gaming experience, but we'll see when we get to the gaming test. Of course, if I haven't mentioned it enough already, the 150 watt fast charging, which is called the Endurance Edition, a day's power in 10 minutes and doubles the battery lifespan from 800 to 1600 cycles. And with them saying a day's power in 10 minutes, they do mean about 50% within 10 minutes. I will demonstrate the charging capabilities later on in the video, but I can tell you that the advertised limit from 0 to 100% is at 19 minutes. It took mine about 26 minutes to get from completely dead to 100%, so they're not too far off. Powerful connectivity, every angle covered, cut through the lag with a completely redesigned antenna system featuring a total of 15 antennas. This provides a 360-degree closed-loop system to avoid blind signal angles. And unfortunately, this is one of the weaker spots with the OnePlus 10T, if you've seen in Jerry Rig Everything's video, where he was able to kind of snap it in half. Yes, there's a lot of antennas in this, but the structural integrity is also compromised. But as I said, most everyday scenarios is not going to have you snapping your phone in half, so you shouldn't have to worry too much about this. This also has Smart Link, which is the redesigned antenna system, and Amp Connect, which will amplify your Wi-Fi and Bluetooth connections, stuff that really doesn't mean much to me, but we'll see if I can pick up a difference. Finally, here it is, the triple camera system with the 50 megapixel main camera, 8 megapixel ultra wide camera, and the 2 megapixel macro. And as I said, 2 megapixel macro camera on a phone worth almost $1,000 is just a little bit silly. A 2 megapixel macro camera I can see on a $100 phone, but not a phone that's $1,000, and that's why I was saying with the 9 Pro, the 9 Pro is $30 more, and at least has a decent camera array rather than the 10T ditching the telephoto and replacing it with a 2 megapixel macro camera. And that is all of the listing and advertising done. So now, can this almost $1,000 phone with a flagship processor be great as a daily driver? Let's unbox it and take a look. And here I have a package from DHL. This took about a week to get to me from China to Australia, so no complaints there. Let's crack this open and take a look at the OnePlus 10T. There we go. And here it is. Nice, vibrant red box, which I'm a big fan of already. 10T branding at the top is shimmery and shiny. Around the side, we have OnePlus 10T 5G with the stickers that we'll have to slice through soon. On the back, we have the serial numbers, IMEIs, the information saying that this is the 8GB and 128GB version. Model is CPH2415, designed by OnePlus, made in China with the Qualcomm Snapdragon and Dolby Atmos certified as well. Slicing through the stickers, we can get a first proper look at the 10T. Just seeing all red here really makes me smile because it reminds me of old OnePlus, but then knowing that this is new OnePlus and it's not quite the same, it's a bit unfortunate, but at least majority of it's red. Inside of the top insert, we have a quick start guide, welcome guide, safety information, and some OnePlus stickers as well. I will put them somewhere. Phone lifts out. We have another insert, and there is the massive charger, the 150 watt fast. It's heavy. Whoa. There is about 60 million different voltages that this thing can do, but yeah, 150 watt fast charging. Sad that I'm going to have to use an adapter though, because this thing is going to get really hot while charging, because it's like 19 minutes to charge up to full. And then inside of this little area is the OnePlus USB Type-C cable on both ends that I will use to fast charge the device. There is also no included case with this, unlike the OnePlus 9 Pro that I previously looked at. Would have been nice for them to include one, but unfortunately it is what it is. So the monies went into the charging technology rather than the structural integrity and the case. But still, this should be a good phone altogether. It's just, it has its shortcomings. Like, just don't bend it in half. Taking it out of its little protective sleeve, we have the device. Alright, so taking a look at the device, we do have a pre-installed screen protector, which is good to see. Around the sides of the device, which is plastic, we do have a volume rocker just there. At the top we have an opening for the top speaker, microphone. On the side, we don't have an alert slider on this, unfortunately. Another corner that's been cut is that they've removed that, but instead ramped up the charging technology. So for people that absolutely love OnePlus and that alert slider, you're probably better off sticking with a 10. If you can live without the alert slider, you've still got this option. Otherwise, just the power button there. On the bottom, we have the SIM tray, USB Type-C port, as well as the speaker grill just there. And on the back is where things really look cool. So I've got the Moonstone black version, which I've got to say, that looks really nice. OnePlus logo right there, the massive camera bump here, which I'm still a little bummed that they didn't put a fourth camera in there, just because why not? But yeah, this is just the LED flash, and that's all that serves. But it does look like a stove, to be fairly honest. So if you like stoves on the back of your phone, this is for you. Otherwise, we just have the model number printed down there, and that's about it on this. Popping the SIM tray out, we do have a rubber ring that goes around it to protect it from getting any water inside of it. It does not have an IP certification, unlike the OnePlus 10 that was IP68 certified. This lacks any certifications, so be careful with this one. Time to power up the OnePlus 10T. Should have battery life. There we go. And here we go. Just quickly looking at the display, we do have very minimal bezels, which I'm liking. While the display is a downgrade from the 10, considering the slight price drop in this, they did have to cut some corners. At the top of the device, we can see the 16 megapixel camera just up there, as well as the earpiece going along there. Standard Gboard on this as well. I'll go ahead and put my Gmail on this. I'll go ahead and enroll my fingerprint while I'm here. So with the real estate that I have, we'll just go ahead and just enroll. Should be fine. I'll also do face unlock while I'm here, which looks a little something like this. And there we go, we've booted up. Alright, so just quickly testing the fingerprint. Nice and fast. And face unlock. Also nice and fast. Now while I've got this live wallpaper on screen, which I'll just quickly show you, looking quite nice. The display actually is very, very sharp with the 1080 by 2412 display, 1 billion colors, as well as the 120Hz refresh rate, which you can't really see, but it definitely is working fine. Now this is stock Android for the most part, but OnePlus has done a few tweaks here and there to make it their own. For example, if I swipe down, you have their shelf, which is just a heap of easy shortcuts. Swiping down though, to show more shortcuts, we'll test the torch quickly. That's fairly bright, and as you can see, the entire ring is lit up on there as well. So night shots should look pretty good with this. More options include a video enhancement, life mode, Zen mode, which I did show on the OnePlus 9 Pro video that went for a bit too long. I plan to just keep this at a minimum and the brightness just turned down like so. And just show you the most important features with this. Touching and holding on the main screen though, we do get the options to choose what widgets we want, as well as the wallpapers. We do have the 2 live wallpapers, as well as some static ones, which look a little something like this. All quite nice, but I do like the live one. That sort of rock breaking, that's kind of cool. All these look fairly nice on this display. Once again, I'm used to cheapo devices, so anything that's AMOLED is immediately good in my eyes. You can also change the icons if you wanted to. Layout can also be changed, transitions, and more. It's just the home screen settings. You don't need to do too much in here, but you can if you want to customize the experience with this. Also, swiping left brings up this, which I'm pretty sure you can switch off, because I don't really want to see the news if I accidentally swipe to the left. App-wise, we pretty much have mostly stock applications, but we do have a couple that OnePlus has thrown on here as extra, like access to the OnePlus community, the clone phone application to change from your old phone to the new phone, but otherwise all is looking fairly good at this point in time. Okay, that's a bit of a jump cut there. I finished with just setting up the phone and decided to use it for general functionality, do the camera test and all that sort of stuff, so I can give you my experience using this while going through bits and pieces off this phone. So I've already installed the applications to test, like Ark Survival Evolved, Genshin Impact, DeviceInfoHW, Geekbench, so we're all good to go there. As for applications though, as I've already mentioned, most of these are stock. OnePlus has added a few things, but I don't need to go through every single one of these and open them up because you know what they're going to do. And in the OnePlus 9 Pro review, I pretty much open up every single one of these in that video, and there's nothing new that's been added by OnePlus anyway, so we can skip over that. What I want to quickly do is demonstrate the call quality. It's at 4G at the moment, but I did do the call quality test with 5G. However, I believe it would have went down to 4G during a call anyways, but I'll splice in the call quality test right now. Have a listen and see what you think.
This is the quality of the earpiece. It was on 5G before I called this, but I think it goes down to 4G once you make a call. I'm not entirely sure how that works. For the test I quickly done, this sounds nice and clear, and you'll have no issues at all with phone quality. And the OnePlus 10T microphone quality sounds a little something like this. I've already done the camera test, and I can tell you it sounds nice and clear. Everything sounds nice and clear as it should be, so let's continue on.
That's the call quality. Sounds pretty good from my test, but we'll come back to the speakers when I get to the speaker test, and then during the camera test, you'll actually hear the microphones again. One thing I found with using this though that I had to get used to is if I swipe here, I bring up the shelf, but if I swipe about here, I bring the notification shade up. It's probably a setting that I can change to have it where the whole top is just the notifications, because I probably won't ever use the shelf. I believe the same function is on iPhones, so that's probably where that comes from. So what I want to do is jump straight into settings then, which I'm already connected to my Wi-Fi, which is 5 GHz. Mobile network is where you can configure your SIM cards, choose your operator, etc. I'm on Telstra at the moment. I'll check further on to see if I'm on 5G. We've got Bluetooth there, connection and sharing, which has all the usual features here, but I just want to quickly test NFC. NFC is located just here. Personalizations, you can change the wallpaper, the always on display, which I'll just quickly demonstrate. There it is there. Icons you could change. Pretty much you're just customizing the Oxygen OS skin that's on top of Android 12, like the colors, the fonts, the fingerprint animation, and also horizon lights, which the display lights up when you get a notification. So I'll just change it to red because I like red. Home screen and lock screen, we've kind of been through here already. You can change the home screen mode to drawer mode or standard mode if you need to. Display and brightness, I'll leave it as light mode. The video enhancement engine, I'll leave everything off. I'll just do the YouTube test with everything off. Screen refresh rate is set to high, which is 120Hz. You can set it to 60Hz to conserve battery. Screen display, you can also show the front camera or hide the front camera with a virtual notch if you wanted to. Coming to think of it, with the video enhancement engine, I'll put bright HDR video mode on because I'll test Costa Rica in 4K and we'll see how that goes. Sounds and vibration, don't need to do terribly much in here. The ringtone is OnePlus New Feeling and the notification sound is Whoop Doop. That's Whoop Doop. And that's OnePlus New Feeling. Which I will also say the vibration motor in this is more of a haptic one, like on the OnePlus 9 Pro, and I much prefer that than the regular style coin vibration motors. And see, with that haptic stuff, it can mimic the feel of real materials and natural interactions for a true-to-life immersive experience. So basically what that does is, if you swipe down and do a couple of things, it will vibrate and provide that haptic feedback. I prefer haptic feedback on any device, for typing especially. Dolby Atmos settings, I'll leave it on Smart for the speaker test, but I could change it for gaming or music. But I'll let the phone try and pick out what BFG division is. Notifications and status bar, you can change the locations of them if you want to. Status bar, I will put battery percentage on just so you can see that it's still at 100%. Password and security, not too much to really talk about here since I've already enrolled my fingerprint and done face unlock. Everything is all nice and fast in that department. Privacy just has a privacy dashboard. You've got some privacy protection that has an app lock, hide apps, and a private safe. All stuff that I don't really need to go over within this review. Safety and emergency, press the power button 5 times in a row to make an emergency call. If you're ever stuck in a situation that needs that, there you go. Emergency contacts, medical info, all that sort of stuff. Once again, don't really need to cover this in the review. Battery, here we go. I've got 100% that can almost last about 2 days. And as you can see, my battery usage within 16 hours on standby went from about 25% down to almost 0%. But basically from my experience of using this to do some browsing, call quality, camera test, all that sort of stuff, I reckon you can get about a day's usage out of this no problems. It could probably last a few days on standby, but obviously if you're going to be purchasing this phone, you're going to be using it as a phone, so expect about a day usage from this. And with the 150 watt fast charging, basically just plug it in and off you go. Which, speaking of the fast charging, here's the demonstration of the 150 watt fast charging with the OnePlus 10T and my results with the test. Alright, so now we're going to do the 150 watt fast charging for the OnePlus 10T. I've set up in my kitchen, so that's why there's an echo, and if you can hear rattling and stuff, that's because Ripley's running around being silly. Anyways, I've got a power plug box that's on an extension cable, just so then you can actually see the charger being plugged in. In order to charge this, I need a travel adapter, which looks a little something like that. I kind of got the most cheapest one from the $2 shop, which cost me $7, which makes complete sense. This is going to go in. The 150 watt fast charger then goes in, and that looks pretty safe. Got my iPhone XS Max here, ready to do the stopwatch. So once I plug this in, we're going to start it up. 3, 2, 1, here we go. And just to also note, the OnePlus 10T is completely dead. There is no power to it. I let it just completely die out. So we'll see how long this takes. It did advertise 19 minutes, but I don't think it accounted for it being completely dead. Alright, there we go. So it took 2 minutes and 20 seconds to actually start properly charging. I don't remember the pin I set. All I'm going to do is go to display and make sure that this doesn't switch off. We'll do 30 minutes. Alright, in this case you can actually get to see it charging there, so watch it go. 6.5 minutes through and the phone is at 22%, so that is really good. "11 minutes in and we're at 45%. Okay, we've just hit 70% at 19 minutes. 80% at 21 minutes. 90% at 23 minutes and 30 seconds. So with the 2.5 minutes it took to actually get it to charge properly, we'd be at about 21 minutes at this moment. So 19 watts advertising is not really accurate, but I'm going to say it should be finished in the next 2 minutes or so. 26 minutes and 19 seconds to get from absolutely flat to 100% fully charged. So that was the 150 watt quick charging. Now, how hot is the charger? That charger is pretty warm from doing that. If I ever want to charge this, I'll just use my regular 30 watt fast charger. I don't really need the 150 watt fast charging, but I can see that it would come in handy for some folks. But with using, as I said, this sort of travel adapter and stuff like that, I'm not going to use it for my own personal use. Even though they did advertise a little over 19 minutes and it was 26 minutes, it isn't too bad at all. It definitely beats the OnePlus 9 Pro in terms of charging speed and the Realme GT as well. So well done to OnePlus for having the 150 watt fast charging implemented, as well as the charger being included in the box. But otherwise, in regards to the battery life, fairly good for what it is, being 4,800 mAh. The A Plus Gen 1 is a bit more efficient than the 888 that was in the 9 Pro that I looked at, so I'm quite happy with that, as well as the charging speed. So let's move on. Applications, I'm not going to go through the application list here because I'm pretty sure you all know that everything's going to be completely legitimate on this. Unlike welcome devices, I shouldn't compare this to a welcome device, but you do have app management, default apps, special app access, auto launch, display of other apps, app cloner. Once again, don't need to go into this for the review because the review will end up being an hour and 40 minutes like the OnePlus 9 Pro one. Location, don't really need to go into. Special features, you have quick launch, which access frequently used functions while unlocking your device, so on the lock screen it'll have some functions like camera or whatever there. Split screen, you can have multitasking. Shelf, we've taken a look at. Work-life balance is a new thing. Strike the balance between your personal life and professional life, which is set up work mode, which I'll just leave, but you can do that if you need to. Scout unlocks a smarter search for in-depth results across apps, which is pretty much just a search function that's been amped up a little bit. Digital wellbeing and parental controls, you can set all that if you need to. System settings, the system navigation, I've got 2 buttons, but you can use gestures if you wanted to. It tells me if I want to learn them, which I probably should learn these one day, but there you go. So if I just swipe from the right, it goes back, and if I swipe from the bottom, goes like that, and if I swipe up from the bottom and hold, oh yep, there you go. I just don't like gestures though, honestly. On iPhones for me it works, but on Android, gestures just doesn't work with me. I prefer buttons, but you do have that option once again. Language will support basically every language you can imagine. Keyboard and input method is just the standard Gboard. Accessibility has quite a lot of options for vision, hearing, and interaction. Gestures and motions, you've got screen off gestures, swipe down with 3 fingers to take a screenshot. Air gestures? Oh, air gestures, okay. Oh, answer or mute calls. Okay, I thought it was like you wave your hand over the sensor and it does something. Power button options, screenshot, screen recording is also there if you want to do some mobile gaming videos and record your gameplay, you can absolutely do that. On-the-go connection is supported. Developer options I've already enabled and set the window animations down to 0.5, so that's why it feels a little bit more snappier. RAM boost is also here, which you can give yourself up to 4 GB of virtual memory, but from my test this really doesn't do terribly much. I've enabled it on some devices and I don't see much of a difference. About device, I have updated this as well to make sure it is on the latest version. This is on Oxygen OS 12.1, running Android 12. Otherwise, storage-wise, I've used 50.2 gig out of the 128 gigs of storage. This is due to the very long camera test that I've done with this. You have the RAM expansion there as well, and sorry, it wasn't 4 GB, it's 5 GB that you can have. Android version is 12, and the Easter egg for 12 is this, which I'm actually not too sure of how this works. Oh, okay, well, there you go, just figured that one out. Okay, so checking my network, I do actually have 4G as well as 5G there, which is definitely good to see. I could have showed a 5G speed test as well, but I don't have any credit on this SIM card. Maybe next time I get a 5G device, I'll make sure I do that. But anyways, that is pretty much everything that's in settings, because what we're left with is just user accounts, Googles, and tips and support, which I'm pretty sure most of you already know what's going on there. And I know that I didn't go super in depth with settings because there is a lot to cover in there, but most of it is self-explanatory. I just want to look at the most important functions of this. What I will talk about also is performance-wise, which the 10T is nice and fast with the 120 Hz. Everything just opens nice and snappy, providing you put the animations down 2.5 instead of 1x that they're at. Pretty much I've had no issues with anything that I've tested. I haven't experienced any lag with this, but once we get into gaming, we'll further test to see how performance is as well as Geekbench 5. So Arc Survival Evolved I'll come back to. Assistant don't need to open. Same with calculator, calendar. Camera, however, this is going to be a very, very long segment, so bear with me. If you need to use timestamps to skip to the camera test, feel free. But here we go. This is the camera. So the 50 megapixel camera right here, manual focus, all working, autofocus is working, all the good stuff is there. If you change this button here, you change it to 50 megapixel mode, and I've done shots with 50 megapixels as well as in the standard 13 megapixel mode, which it is currently in. Now you do have an option for a 2x zoom, which looks like a telephoto zoom, but it's just a 2x digital zoom because we don't have a dedicated telephoto lens on this, and that leads up to a 10x digital zoom. We do have the ultra wide camera as well, which does work. If you do have this phone and you want to film in ultra wide, if you go to ultra wide and then go to video, you'll find that it's not in ultra wide. In order to film in ultra wide, you have to go to more, then go to movie, and then click ultra wide, and then you can film in ultra wide. I don't know why they didn't have this option just available, you know, straight up in settings here, just to click and there you go, but it's hidden within there. HDR is automatically on for most shots. You've got an AI thing to help you touch up photos. You also do have a retouching option as well as filters if you want to use them. Settings wise, I have put the watermark on just so I can prove the photos were taken with the 10T. Otherwise, everything within settings is pretty self-explanatory here, and I didn't need to change anything within settings. I just used everything within the camera interface. Switching to video though, you can choose 720p, 1080p, and 4K. 720p can do 30 FPS and 60 FPS. 1080p can also be 30 FPS and 60 FPS, as well as 4K can be also 30 FPS and 60 FPS. There is an option called Ultra Steady Mode, which films in 1080p 60 FPS, and I have used this in the camera test, which you'll see very soon. But pretty much the optical image stabilization that is on the main 50 megapixel camera definitely does work, so I'm happy with that. But once you start to see the quality of the photos taken with this, you'll find that it's not really top tier stuff, but we'll get to that soon. You do have a night mode here, which works. There's also a portrait mode, which I've done a couple of shots with them. There's also portrait mode on the front as well, which I've taken a bunch of shots with the front camera, and the front camera can only film in 1080p 30 FPS. In the other options, you do have pro mode, panorama, macro, which it does work, but it's just a 2 megapixel macro camera at the end of the day on a $1,000 device. I won't say anything more about that until after the camera test. Movie is where you can film in ultra wide and change the settings and stuff like that. Slow-mo, is exactly what it does. Slow-mo, time-lapse, long exposure. If you want to capture moving vehicles and fast objects and stuff, that's what you use. Dual view video, uses the front and back cameras at the same time. I've also done a test with that. And tilt shift, I didn't really understand what tilt shift does. I tried to take a couple of shots with it and it just blurred the top and the bottom, so I'll have to look up and see what that does. Now's the point in time where I'm going to splice in the camera test for the OnePlus 10T. This is going to be quite a long one because I show 4K 60 FPS, 30 FPS, 1080p, night shots, ultra wide shots, all that sort of stuff. So get ready for about 5 minutes of LA Noire music and about 10 minutes of footage, and we'll be right back. .1080p 30 FPS, and we'll just go and have a look at the froggos nice and close. That just focused in and it's looking pretty good. That's the second froggo just there, and if you didn't see in the camera test already, we have some new froggos. Well, we have one new froggo and some new ornaments. Here is froggo number 4, this little fella here with no eyeballs, which is kind of a bit scary, but there you go. Yeah, my tree that I had here for various flowers is gone, so I can't really show any various flowers in the camera test anymore. I have to just stick with the ornaments, but that's okay, it'll come back, I think. Some of it will. There's some just there, look at that. There you go. We've still got some. Optical image stabilization is definitely working with 1080p 30 FPS. That's looking quite stabilized there, so that's very, very good to see. Just a pan along the brick wall there, and the random bolts, there they are. And then finally, let's go down to Stuart, who has a new friend. This is Mick the Leprechaun, named after our family friend. His hat also comes off as well, which is a bit strange, but I'll just leave that on. And that's my phone making noise. So yeah, they're both there side by side now, so that's pretty cool. And there's also Maggie the Magpie. Now that's a cool one. I got these gnomes from our family friend. We were cleaning out his house and the family said for me that I can take whatever, and I thought I'd take these in his memory. So yeah, Maggie the Magpie, Froggo 4 and Mick the Leprechaun are all part of the family now. Lemon tree there with a lemon. Oh, nice. And then the faraway aircon looks a little something like this, but if we go for a, oh, wait for it, 10 times digital zoom, you can see Breeze there right there. Wow, and you can also see some things flying around too. Well, that's 1080p, 30 FPS. Okay, and this is the OnePlus 10T recording in ultra-wide mode. This should be 1080p, 30 FPS, and it doesn't seem like there's any autofocus going on. Even if I tap the screen and do a manual focus, it's pretty much just a fixed lens. But honestly, I don't see much difference between ultra-wide and standard, to be fairly honest. It does appear to have some sort of stabilization there, but I believe that would be EIS for the ultra-wide camera. And I cannot zoom in ultra-wide either. That's as far as we're going to get with this one. Okay, so I just realized I'll have to render this video in 4K as well as 60 FPS as well, even though most of the video is in 30 FPS, but this is super steady mode, so I'm just going to move the camera around sort of very fast so you can just see the super steady mode kicking in, which looks pretty good. The optical image stabilization is definitely working, plus some software stuff as well, so I'm liking this. By memory, I think the OnePlus 9 Pro had this as well, but I just don't quite remember. Maggie the Magpie there, swinging over to Stuart, the Leprechaun, Mick the Leprechaun, sorry. Brick wall there, lemon tree there, and of course, the faraway aircon, we cannot zoom in 1080p 60 FPS ultra steady mode, it's just stuck as is. Now time to show you 4K. And there is a 4K 60 FPS option as well, so I'll quickly test this, but just a very quick one, the 4K 30 FPS test, because I don't want this camera test to go for 20 minutes like on the OnePlus 9 Pro did, but otherwise we still have manual focus, autofocus, everything still all working, as well as the optical image stabilization right there. Also, Froggo 4, I need to show you more. 3 Muppets just there like so. There's Ripley there, just screaming for me as usual. Hi Ripley. Maggie the Magpie just there. Stuart and Mick, and up there to the brick wall there. And the lemon tree with lemon, and of course we'll go for a good old zoom in to the faraway aircon, which I need to be over here a bit more. There we go. See, the stabilization is working with a 10 times digital zoom, so yeah, that's pretty cool. Well, that's 4K 30 FPS. Let me show you 60 FPS. Now this looks pretty good. I mean, as far as I can tell anyways, it looks pretty good. Manual focus, still working. Autofocus, still working. Optical image stabilization, also still working, so everything is all present at 4K 60 FPS. This doesn't do 8K, unfortunately, but for something like this, I guess it's okay. They could have had the option to do 8K, because this camera can do 8K. As far as I know anyways, it should be able to do 8K. Sorry, I had the focus locked for a second. There we go. Back in action. Should just zoom in on Maggie the Magpie, actually. There we go. Oh, he looks evil, doesn't he? Guess you can also look at that for detail as well. Brick wall for detail. See, that's quite smooth. You know, the panning along and stuff. Very, very smooth. Also, just realised that the rotting lemons are still there. Probably need to get rid of them, so then these two fellas don't have rotting lemons between them. Lemon tree, lemon, there you are there. And of course, the digital zoom straight to the aircon. Right there, you can see Breeze Air in all of its quality. That's that for that one. Now let's switch to night mode and see how this performs. It's close to midnight and I've got this thing set on 1080p 60 FPS with super steady on, and the LED flash is on as well, and it looks pretty good. Can't really complain about that, to be honest. I've also done some photos outside as well, and yeah, they didn't seem too bad at all. Yeah, even in pitch black with the LED flash on, everything is still super stabilized, and you can see a little bit of sort of jitteriness there, but you know what, it's not too bad at the end of the day. Oh yeah, this is the thing, dual view video. I've had this on a couple of phones before, but I've never really shown it, but there's Ripley. Hi Ripley! And you can see me. Hello! I mean, obviously you can see me. It's... What are you doing? You're trying to destroy the door. That's evil. Don't be evil. Don't be evil. Guys, don't be evil. You're just still scratching. Are you renovating my house, are you? You are. Okay, that's fair. Hello. Ah, that got me. That got me. That got me. That's fun. I like this mode. It's on a lot of phones, but I just never use it. I should use it. It's kind of fun. Alrighty, so testing the front camera quality of the OnePlus 10T. This is at 1080p. It can only do 30 FPS, not 60 FPS, so this is what it looks like. But it seems to be stabilized, pretty much for the most part anyways. We don't have, I mean, it seems like we have manual focus, but I don't think that's actually doing anything. I think it's just exposure. But this looks pretty good. It should look good. I mean, for a phone that costs as much as it does, it should look fairly decent. Not like a Wacom device that costs, you know, $100 and is garbage. I'm comparing this to a Wacom device. Anyways, enough rambling. Let's continue on with this review. This is a little strange, but this is night mode on the OnePlus 10T. What it is just lighting up the screen. It's mostly white and there's just a little circle that has me in it, and that's how that works. So there you go. Alright, you've just seen the quality of the photos and videos that I took with the OnePlus 10T. And yeah, we do have some new additions. We do have Froggo 4 with no eyeballs, which is kind of a bit nightmarish, but okay. We also have Maggie the Magpie, and Mick the Leprechaun gets to sit with Stuart there, with the rotting lemons that I forgot to take away. Camera-wise, the 50 megapixel main camera is pretty good. The optical image stabilization definitely helps it out. The 8 megapixel ultra-wide camera with no autofocus is pretty basic for the most part. It is nothing special, as you can see with standard there. And then ultra-wide, it's honestly not that big of a difference between the main camera and the ultra-wide. And then the 2 megapixel macro sensor, it works. You can go close up to an object and take a photo, but it's just 2 megapixels and nothing else. You can use a main sensor and go nice and close to an object and achieve the same result. So pretty much this phone has one good rear camera, a basic 8 megapixel ultra-wide, and then a fairly useless 2 megapixel macro camera. So that's one thing I can criticize with this phone. Why they didn't include a telephoto on this is just a bit beyond me. I know they were cutting back costs and stuff, but with cutting back the display on this from the OnePlus 10 Pro, that should have been enough money to just keep the telephoto in there, but instead that macro camera is thrown in there. Honestly, it's just going to be largely unused for the most part because the main sensor can do pretty much everything you need to do. And the front camera is not bad at all. No autofocus, it's just fixed. It does have some EIS, but otherwise it's a fairly standard one. So all up for the price of this device for the cameras, pretty lacking and underwhelming for the most part anyways. Just stick with the main sensor, as I've said a billion times. But anyways, enough rambling about the camera because I'll go back over it during the conclusion. Let's move on because we do have the browser test next. Which, as you would expect from a phone packed with a flagship processor and 8GB of RAM, you'll expect no problems with browsing. Everything is nice and snappy. The OnePlus 11 Pro has been announced. Let's see what the OnePlus 11 Pro is actually, because I have no idea. My god, what have they done? It's rumoured though, Snapdragon 8 Gen 2. Well, if OnePlus is still happy with me after this video, we might actually get a look at that. 5000 mAh battery and 100 watts fast charging, not bad. It's got a bit of a weird camera bump there, and Hasselblad's back on that too, so there you go. But I'll just quickly say, before I even get to a conclusion, I wouldn't really recommend the 10T. I'd recommend going with the 9 Pro, as it's cheaper and does have a lot more features, but I will jump further into that into the conclusion because I already feel that this review is falling apart because I want to love the 10T because it is a good device, but there's just so many shortcomings with this. But anyways, within all that rambling, you'll have no issues with the browser regardless of what you open on this, and that goes with social media as well. You can scroll the never-ending world of whatever social media that you like and you shouldn't have any issues with that. So moving swiftly on. Clock we don't need to open, clone phone we can leave, community as well, contacts, DeviceInfoHW, Google Drive, Duo, file manager is just the standard Google file manager, games is just where it has all your games here and stuff. I did use this in the OnePlus 9 Pro review and I didn't really see much of an improvement, so I'll just leave this off. We'll do the gaming test just standard. Geekbench 5 we'll come back to, Genshin Impact we'll also come back to, Gmail, Google, Google One, Google TV, Home, Lens, Maps. I also did put my main SIM in this to use GPS and used it to help me navigate to a place half an hour away, and I had no issues there, so GPS functionality will be good on this. Messages, My Files is the OnePlus file manager there, which honestly for me looks better than the Google file manager, but anyways. Netflix is on here by default. News, you don't want to ever open that. Notes is Notes. Phone, Photos again, which is the OnePlus application. Play Store, Podcasts, Sound Recorder. You've already heard the quality of the microphone, so I think we're good there. Settings we've been through. Wallet, where you can have your cards and stuff. Weather, YouTube. I think it's time for the YouTube test then. HDR is on, so we can have 4K 60 FPS HDR. So here it is. Also, the speakers, amazing. There we go. Zoom in a little bit, just so you can also see the bezel sizes as well. The display is pretty good. It's not going to be as exceptional as the 9 Pro or the 10 Pro, but it is pretty good for what it is. The colours are very vibrant, everything looks nice and sharp, and it's not even heating up as well. It's staying fairly cool. Yeah, that's what that looks like. And so far, the stereo speakers really have some punch to them. So, with that being said, BFG division time. This is what the speakers on the OnePlus 10T are going to sound like. They're loud. There's a tiny little imbalance between the top speaker and the bottom speaker, but it is very, very minor. You probably won't be able to notice it. The loudspeakers, pretty much exactly the same as the 9 Pro. Very clear, nice and loud. And once I tear it down, I'll get a better look at them. But otherwise, not really much else to say here, so let's move on. I think we should open Geekbench 5. Let's run this and see what numbers we come up with. Numbers don't mean everything, but it'll be good to just see the difference between this and the 9 Pro that I looked at last year. As you can see with the 8 Plus Gen 1 processor, we've got 4 standard cores, and 3 efficiency cores, and 1 higher clocked core in that big cluster there. I'll run the benchmark and we'll see how this goes. Also, battery life is still holding up at 96%, and the phone is still quite cool and hasn't gotten very hot to touch or anything like that. The 9 Pro did run a little bit hot, but since this is a more power efficient processor, it's running quite fine within this, and also the vapor cooling is probably helping. Sorry for the random jump cut there. I was doing the Geekbench test and unfortunately got a bit carried away on a call with some good friends, so I had to stop filming, but I'm back now. So let's start the test again and see what we get. Alright, the results are in. We have 1017 for the single core score and 3398 for the multi-core score. I'll display other scores from the OnePlus 9 Pro as well as the Realme GT 5G on screen, which gives you a good indication that from the Snapdragon 888 to the 8 Plus Gen 1, there isn't much of a difference. While these are all just numbers at the end of the day, the 8 Plus Gen 1 is likely more power efficient, of course, but in terms of capability, it's still around the same as the Snapdragon 888, which all in all, from seeing that though, the Realme GT 5G is still a good option if you want to consider that. It's almost half the price of this, and has pretty much the same display, the same camera setup, except it doesn't have optical image stabilization, and no ridiculous charging speed, but it's basically the same. But I'd really have to look deeper into real-world 888 benchmarks and the 8 Plus Gen 1 benchmarks to see if there is much of a difference between them, since as I've said a number of times, these are just numbers, it doesn't really say much. But hardware in phones nowadays is not really getting a drastic increase in performance, it's just very incremental upgrades with each new release of a phone. Anyways, that's what we've got, let's move on. Because what we have left is a quick gaming test as well as DeviceInfoHW, so I think we'll get the gaming test out of the way and just show you how this performs. Now there is a little feature that OnePlus has, I don't know if this was on the 9 Pro or not, but if you swipe down from both corners, you get this little menu that pops up which tells you the current temperature of the device, your battery life, and some little quick shortcuts and stuff there, which is quite helpful, but I'll just leave everything. We want the full experience here. Also, I believe the same issue is present from the OnePlus 9 Pro, is that games are still locked at 60 FPS and they don't go any further past that, because as far as I can tell with Genshin Impact, it's only at 60 FPS, but I'll double check. Everything is loaded, and this is everything on absolute maximum details, and I can show you that. There we go. Everything is set on the absolute highest settings there, and yeah, 60 FPS is unfortunately as far as we can go.
Who's there?
There's a bit of a speaker imbalance there as well. It's not bad. So I've got some enemies on screen now, so you can just see the performance if it lags or anything like that, but oh, I'm getting pretty owned here. That's fine. I'll just keep hacking and slashing. Yeah, you'll have no problems with Genshin Impact. Runs perfectly fine with the high settings. And honestly, the phone's not getting too hot either. But I think the cooling in this is more than sufficient for the processor. And yeah, gaming experience is going to be no problems with this. Look how smooth that is. Oh, a little bit laggy, of course, but Nothing too detrimental. It's fine. It's pretty good. I'm also thinking of doing an alien isolation test. It only does run on devices running Android 10 or higher and with decent specs, but if you want to see me test alien isolation on high-end phones, I'm more than happy to get that up and going and test that and see how we go, but otherwise I'll just stick with Genshin and Ark Survival Evolved for now. And usually playing Genshin Impact for a bit's going to drain battery life, of course, but this seems to hold up fairly well for the most part. Let's move on to Ark Survival Evolved. Okay, well, that's a bit strange. Ark doesn't work? Let me uninstall it and I'll try it again. Alright, it's installed again. Let's see if this works. So allow. Nope, not too sure what's happening there. That's very strange. I was going to say, maybe it's not compatible with this version of Android, but it should be. I don't understand why it shouldn't work. I won't be able to show you this, but I can reassure you though that whatever you throw at this will be absolutely no problems. This is probably why I do need to get a more higher end game to show in these tests, so I will get Alien Isolation for the next flagship device that I do review, if I happen to review another decent flagship device in the future. Let's double check DeviceInfoHW just to quickly check the specs. Once again, I'm pretty sure you all know what's going on here, but I just want to quickly just double check and I'll scroll through here. 8 Gen 1 Plus is what it is. I've been calling it 8 Plus Gen 1. At the end of the day, it's the same thing, 8 Plus Gen 1 or 8 Gen 1 Plus. 3 clusters there, as I spoke about within Geekbench. Seems that the codename for this was Tarot. There you go. 2412 by 1080, and I believe that would be a 10-point multi-touch. That certainly is. 8 gig and 128 gig. So the back camera comes up as 13 megapixels, but it is a 50 megapixel sensor. The front says 4 megapixels within here, which is a bit strange. Battery, 4,800 milliamp hours, no problems there. Thermal is looking to be about, 31 degrees or so. During the testing of this device, I honestly didn't see it get to a point where it was really hot. It got warm, which is perfectly normal, but it never got to a point where it was really, really hot. Hopefully we can take a look at some of the cooling that's inside of this once I tear it down, but otherwise it seems to be doing its job. And with that, folks, I think that is about it that I want to show with the OnePlus 10T. I've showed you camera performance, most of the settings, browser, audio, YouTube, gaming. I've pretty much showed everything that I really wanted to demonstrate on this device. I do feel that the camera segment was really important to this review, so that's why pretty much showed every mode with the camera, but I just wanted to make sure that you all get a good sense of what this offers for the price. I won't go into too much of a conclusion now. Until I start reassembling the phone, I'll do a bit of a voiceover, but from what I can tell you now, this is basically the Realme GT 5G that I've reviewed. It's just with faster charging OIS and a better processor. That's about it. So if this phone was $550 Australian, I could easily say, yeah, this is a great phone to go with because of that charging speed and stuff like that. But at its $930 price range, I just don't think it's worth it. But anyways, I'll talk about that when I get to the conclusion soon. Let's tear it down and have a look inside the 10T. Well, the best way inside of the OnePlus 10T is to remove the back glass. So we'll have to use a heat gun to get inside of here. Small problem though with using a suction cup to lift up the back glass. Because of the texture of this, it doesn't quite stick as well as I'd hoped because of, that sort of sandstone texture that they've applied to it. So I'm gonna just have to try my best here and see how we go. But anyways, let me see what I can do. So with just some heat from my heat gun, I can use a plastic piece to just go around the sides of the phone and just loosen up the adhesive. And I shouldn't have to tell everyone this, but obviously doing this will void any warranty that you do have with this device. We're in. So the adhesive wasn't that strong, since this doesn't have any IP certifications, but just taking a look at the back glass gives us a better look at the camera bump there, and the LED circle also has a little covering over it because there is a sensor that I can see there, which right here we do have what appears to be an ambient light sensor just there, as well as the 2 LED flashes, the 50 megapixel main camera, the 8 megapixel ultra wide, and the 2 megapixel macro camera. But in order to get a better look at what's going on, we're going to have to remove the plastics, so let me quickly do that. You will need to remove this little red piece here. Once you pull up the little metal bracket that's here, you then have access to disconnect the flex ribbon for the light sensor and LEDs. There's 9 screws holding the top plastic on. All the screws are the same size, so you don't have to worry about mixing them up everywhere. I'll also take the 7 screws out down at the bottom to reveal the charging port and SIM card tray. Bottom plastic comes away in 2 pieces, and the top plastic just comes away like so, revealing the dual battery design. On the underside, you can see the 2 little contacts there for the NFC pad that's located here. But I will disconnect the 2 battery cables that connect to the motherboard. To remove the battery is easy enough. Just simply pull back the adhesive, then grab onto the 2 little pull tabs here, and just lift the battery out. Which that is a very nice and easy battery removal. There is the dual 2400 mAh batteries totaling the 4800 mAh capacity that's within this. And the reason why they separate it into 2 batteries is to achieve better fast charging. Instead of it being 1 battery, it's 2 batteries that are getting the power at the same time. Unclipping this little connector for the under-screen fingerprint sensor, I'll unsnap this like a little Lego. That's the flex cable for the subboard, 2 antenna cables. One screw does hold down the charging port. Once that is removed, you should be able to just pop that out like so. That's a good look at the SIM tray there, as well as the subboard that has the microphone on it, as well as the flex ribbon for the under-screen fingerprint sensor, and contacts for the antenna. The ports are covered with a bit of a seal there, so if any water does get in, most of the major components are protected, but since there is no official certification, just still be careful. So the bottom loudspeaker has a wire just snaked through it like that, but that is the bottom loudspeaker just there. There is some waterproof mesh over it. There's also the sound dampening foam balls inside of this, but I'll just put that cover back on there. The charger port is just connected with this long flex cable here, and that is easily replaceable if you do happen to damage this. And that also does have a red rubber ring around it to also help protect any water from getting inside of this. Pretty much, if you wanted to do a charger port replacement, just remove this little bit of plastic, remove the entire flex cable from the motherboard, and that's it. So this flex cable here is for one of the 5G antennas just to the side there, and this one is for the optical fingerprint sensor, and it is just this little tiny one. That is our optical fingerprint sensor. Otherwise, down at the bottom we have the haptic vibration there, the display ribbon cable that connects to another flex ribbon that then leads up to the main motherboard there, if that's not confusing enough. But anyways, let's take a look at the main board. There's 2 screws holding the motherboard down, so I'll take these out. I'll pop off the 3 flex ribbons, as well as the 3 signal wires, lifting up the motherboard and pulling away from the phone. The 50 megapixel sensor still had some adhesive that was holding it down in place. Let's pop out the cameras and take a quick look at them. So here is the 50 megapixel one, which is quite a big camera for what it is. So that means the sensor inside of this should be a fairly big one. Definitely does have optical image stabilization, like so. The 8 megapixel ultra wide camera is this fairly basic one here, and the 2 megapixel macro camera is just this little one here, the unfortunate useless camera that got thrown into this device. There's plenty of room for a telephoto one, but it is what it is. Taking a closer look at the motherboard, it is a complicated piece of technology here, with a bunch of connectors that have the little rubber gaskets around them to protect any water from getting in there, as well as most major components have that little glue over them. And then on the underside, we do have our front-facing camera with no optical image stabilization. Then we have the most important chips on the underside here with 2 little blobs of thermal paste. And if we take a look at the frame, we will see the 2 areas for the thermal paste as well as a vapor chamber just right there. If you do recall back to the advertising, there is one big piece sandwiched in between the frame and the display, but it definitely does cover this entire portion. It would have been nice to see it in its entirety, but you pretty much get the idea that it should be that entire piece there. And also the top loudspeaker is just there, which doubles as the earpiece as well. And comparing the speaker sizes, that's why you may be able to hear an imbalance between 2 speakers, as that one's a bit smaller than this one. I do see a lot of antenna connections going around the frame, like OnePlus said with their Smart Link, so that is all correct. I do see quite a lot of contacts going around there, all the way around the frame, but unfortunately, that frame is plastic. That is pretty much the entire teardown of the OnePlus 10T. I've got a good idea of what's going on in here. I'm glad to see that vapor chamber behind the frame, and it was also good to get a better look at the components, but I think it's time we put it back together, and I'll give you my final conclusion, and we'll call this a video. As a conclusion for the OnePlus 10T, I won't go on too much here since I've pretty much expressed my views within the video, but altogether, the phone is okay. Performance-wise, it's good. Battery life and charging speed is really good. The main 50 megapixel camera I'll give credit to, and the display is also fairly good for what it is, but that's sort of where it comes to an end. Since for the price of the phone, it just isn't worth it for what specs it has. You can pick up a phone from other manufacturers that could beat this phone in terms of features. If you take a look back at the Realme GT I reviewed last year, which is all made by the same company, BBK, that phone is essentially what the 10T is, but with a Snapdragon 888, no optical image stabilization on the main sensor, and no 150 watt fast charging, but basically it's the same phone, and it's currently only selling for about $550 Australian. If you do like OnePlus, the 9 Pro is still a really solid option to pick up for an extra $30, or even cheaper depending on where you look, since it has so many better features and specs from the 10T. While the 10T does have positives, I just feel that with the cameras being cheaped out on, no wireless charging, no water resistance, it just feels more like a $500 to $600 phone. It is a bit unfortunate with this one. It is still a good phone, don't get me wrong, just not at this price range. It's all back together and all working accordingly. I do have to clean it up a little bit because there's adhesive everywhere, and I will reapply the back adhesive just so that it's not sort of like it is now. You've heard my conclusion about this device. Hopefully the next model by OnePlus is improved in both durability as well as performance to price ratio, but we'll see what happens when that device gets released. That's everything I want to talk about in this OnePlus 10 review that has gone on way too long, but I just wanted to cover the most important things on this device, and I think that is what I have done. So a big thank you to OnePlus for sending this phone out to me for a review. I really do appreciate it, and OnePlus did not pay me for this review. All opinions within this video were my own, and I'm just expressing my honest opinions with this device. It's just how I feel about it. Others may not think so, but it's just my collective thoughts altogether on this. But a big thank you to them, and if you do want to check this out, there is a link in the description below. Feel free to check it out. It's not an affiliate link. I won't earn anything from any sales. Feel free to check this up elsewhere to see if it's any cheaper if you do specifically want this model. Otherwise, the 9 Pro and the 10 Pro are readily available for you to consider as well. Otherwise, if you made it this far in the review, thank you very much. I really do appreciate it. But if you had to use the timestamps, that's all good. That's why they're there. I don't expect you to watch the whole entire thing through. That's all good. That's another in-depth phone review done from me. So I hope you did enjoy this video. I didn't want to make it go as long as the OnePlus 9 Pro review. I wanted to keep it a little bit sort of simplistic, so I've cut some things back so it may not be as super in-depth as I've wanted it to be, but I think I've covered the most major aspects of this device. But if I've missed anything, feel free to let me know and I can always reply back to you in the comments. And if OnePlus wants to send me their next new device, we'll see what happens. But in the meantime, I do have a big AliExpress lot arriving soon. Some awesome folks on one of my live streams sent me a massive wave of donations to go towards some stuff on AliExpress for me to have a look at, so expect those to be coming out whenever I receive them. I'm still waiting for them. I will be taking a small break in October, but I will still be uploading. I'll have content pre-filmed and then just sort of upload it, so I won't be as active in October, but I'll try my best wherever I can. But otherwise, that's all updates for now. I'm going to leave this one here. Thank you very much for watching this video. I really do appreciate it. Thank you to OnePlus once again for sending this out to me for a review. I really do appreciate it, and I hope there's no bad feelings or anything. I'm just expressing my opinions about the phone. As always, folks, take care, stay safe, be good people, and I'll see you all in the next video, which will be looking at probably a cheap product. That's what I'm known for, so that's probably what's going to happen next. But until then, take care, and I'll see you next time. If you like this content, feel free to leave a like or a dislike if you didn't. Thanks heaps for watching, and I'll catch you all in the next video.